Why is it so important, not just to yourself, but obviously Bain and company, to be part of this industry TM Forum Diversity and Inclusion Council?
Absolutely. Thank you, Vicky. First of all, diversity, equity, and inclusion is one of Bain's top priorities. And I know many companies say that, but this really goes beyond a few nice words on paper. We've put our most senior leadership in a diversity, equity, and inclusion council. We've committed to investing 100 million globally in actually supporting organizations on the topic of racial equity and social injustice. And to be honest, we like a bold challenge. So we've been very much inspired by the ambition as formulated by the TM Forum, and the council is a perfect opportunity for us to actually make an impact. For me personally, working in strategy consulting, pretty male dominated, advising an industry which is also pretty male dominated. You can probably imagine that I'm very passionate about the topic. Ever joining Bain 15 years ago, I've been heavily involved in driving our gender diversity efforts. So I'm super excited to leverage my experience and expertise towards a bigger scale.
And it's certainly great to have yourself and Bain and company on board with this as well, and particularly bringing in that expertise. In your experience, when starting out on, if for an organisation that's just starting out on their diversity and inclusion journey, because obviously, as we know, some organisations are further ahead than others. How do you begin with even changing mindset? Whether it's at the top level or the lower level, like that's got to start somewhere. And Fleur, I know you have a lot of experience of this on a cross-industry level. So please do share with us some of your key learnings from this.
Indeed, we work with many of our clients on this topic. So we get exposed to many efforts, many successes, many failures as well. Let me highlight 4 of them, for practical measures that I've seen work. Some of them have been definitely mentioned already in the panel, but let me start with the basics. Answer the why. I think in the beginning of the journey, how much of a hygiene step it is crucial to anchor this theme into a clear business logic, anchor it into your strategy, and answer for your company, why is this important to us? We've all seen the evidence, the overwhelming evidence on diverse teams creating better business outcomes. We all know the importance in the war of talent and how important it is actually to have this on your agenda. We know the impact on innovation. We know the impact on employee engagement, but actually translating that for your company is a very crucial and important first step. If you don't do that, it will definitely haunt you later on in the journey. I think second, also a very factual one, but it's important to start with the facts on your starting position. The good, the bad, the ugly. So make sure before you start your journey, everyone starts from the same level, if you will. Understand what actually the state of diversity is in the various steps of your recruiting funnel, for instance. What's the yield to promotion for various minority groups? What's the gap in engagement between various groups within your company? Make sure you have, across all the most important business metrics, the data on the table, and bring them in a high velocity way. Don't show them, once a year, but make sure you confront leadership with that on a frequent basis. Then third, very important, once you have those statistics and kind of business layer in place, humanize those facts. Give those facts a face. Bring them to life. We call that kind of elevate marginalized voices. What we do there is make sure within leadership, boardrooms or management teams, tough and honest discussions are being held around what's actually the experience of minority groups within a company. What does it feel like to be excluded from certain discussions or certain situations? Actually make that a tough moment, but move beyond the graphs and the scores and the paperwork, but actually give it a face. And then lastly, make it personal. You alluded a little bit to that, but unconscious bias training on all levels in the company, and then making sure it's embedded in everything you do. We find that a very powerful tool to make sure it's a realization that it's not happening around me. I'm actually a part of the issue. As an executive, as a boardroom member, going through that can definitely be an eye opener in understanding that, you know, we need to change our behaviors, all of us, all the time, to make an impact. So those are a few practical examples from what we see around us.
And then, so, you know, there's also this resilience that everybody's talking about now. What does that mean for an organization to be more agile when it comes to transformation? And how does diversity fit into that requirement when we talk about resilience?
Yeah, I think agility and diversity, maybe after COVID, and you're on mute, probably the most used terms in business life as well. Very few of our clients that are not thinking through their agile transformation today, and we are supporting them in either resetting how they think about agile or starting with them from scratch. And let me start by stating that diversity of teams is a key pillar of success for being agile. Bringing together those different experiences, viewpoints, perspectives enables agility in a way that a team of those who think all the same or have the same experience never could. Remember, agility is about being adaptable, responding very quickly to changing circumstances, co-creating together, and coming up with innovative ideas. So, you know, that whole statement around diversity, diverse teams actually come to better business outcomes. This is where the rubber hits the road, right? This is where that in particular is very true in an agile environment. Sometimes we also meet clients that say, well, actually, I have a cross-functional team set up, right? I have an agile team with an engineer, someone from marketing, maybe someone from sales, someone from ops. We have them all. Well, guess what? If that's a team of you know, full white males, they may have different functional backgrounds, but that doesn't mean that they bring the diverse profiles that you need to come to those best outcomes. Another point that I would want to make around diversity and the importance in having that diversity in agile teams is you can bring all the diversity into a team that you want to. If there is not a sense of inclusion in the room, if there's not a sense of safe speech in a way, you will not get to the outcomes that you need. So this is from where we stand, where inclusion also definitely comes in. Create that inclusive culture, create that inclusive environment, because otherwise all your efforts to then come up with those diverse teams are not actually giving you the outcomes that you are looking for if they are not feeling safe and included to actually share those perspectives.
So in this climate, and as we hopefully look to come out of it sooner rather than later, what should leaders be asking themselves now, you know, from an inclusive leadership perspective? What should the leaders themselves be asking?
Well, a couple of thoughts from my side. I think, first of all, challenge the speed with which you have been progressing. If there's one learning from this whole pandemic, it's that if you want to, you can actually massively accelerate your digital transformation, right? There are many companies around us that have been catapulted immediately into a state that they had probably envisioned 5 years from now. So, you know, if it really is needed, it can be done much faster than you had planned for. So challenge yourself on, am I moving at the pace that I want to, and use a little bit, you know, the acceleration in for instance, digital as a proof point that if you want to, you can speed up massively. I think, second of all, this is a bit of a practical point around equip our leaders, equip our management teams with the right information, with the right practical tools to do the right thing. I don't think there are many around us that have bad intent, but there are many around us that just struggle to see, you want me to build this inclusive culture or be an inclusive leader, but then how? You know, tell me what that means. So being much more prescriptive in, you know, these are the inspiring behaviors or inclusive behaviors that we want you to show that are actually making an impact. These are all the routines that you need to change for you to build this inclusive culture, I think is very actionable and very impactful, as opposed to having a big hairy topic on a slide saying we need to be much more inclusive and this is the big ambition, and then a big layer of middle management below it that goes like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong today. So make that very actionable and very concrete. And there is a ton of research on, which behaviors are actually leading to desired outcomes.
So Fleur, what's your objective view of what that skill shortage is in the industry?
I can only confirm this screaming need for the digital skills. I mean, we see at least 60% of businesses indicating that there is a significant skill gap across all sectors when it comes to digital skills. And we also see that, again, 60 to 70% indicate that gap is widening over time. Also, if you think about COVID actually jump-starting or accelerating that digital transformation, that makes a ton of sense, right? I mean, all of a sudden, a lot of your plans, now had to be executed at scale. So the need for those skills is only increasing. The nuance here, I think, is a bit the distinction between hard digital skills and the soft ones. When we talk a lot about the hard ones around AI, cybersecurity, cloud computing, data scientists, those go hand in hand typically with the softer ones, with the biggest gaps typically around customer centricity, but also data-driven mindset, a data-driven decision making. Sometimes we see companies that actually succeed in hiring, lumps of hard digital skills. Without the soft ones in place, you still will not be able to accelerate your digital transformation. And I think on the latter one, including customer centricity and UI UX, but also data-driven decision making, upskilling and reskilling is much more of a viable option.
Mm-hmm. And what about new talent? What are your organizations doing to attract young and diverse talent?
I know it's a well-known phrase, but many women are over-mentored and under-sponsored, right? So in the beginning, I mentioned 4 of PDPs we see, especially around awareness building. Right after that list of 4, and number 5, I would say, comes sponsorship. It's a bit of a more labor-intense activity, so to speak, because you really have to make sure you do the one-on-one connections well. But if you get a sponsorship program up and running, it can be very, very effective in actually breaking through that sub-skill segment and making that mainstream. A sponsor being the one talking about you when you're not in the room, we should have more of those, and handpicking them and actually making sure they earn the right. Again, I love that phrase, is from where we stand a program with huge untapped potential.
I think that's really important. We are coming to run out of time, and I want you to get the chance to give your kind of closing on each of, on everything we've talked about. This has been an amazing session. Any closing thoughts from you?
Yes, well, first of all, thank you for having me. This was definitely the highlight of my week, maybe even month. So thank you for allowing me to participate. I felt we covered actually a very broad spectrum of topics, right from diversity and inclusion to a little bit of agility, workforce and the future of workforce, and then also covering vitality and mental health. I think it's a very broad spectrum who are all in some way connected to each other, right? I think on a positive note, at least what we have seen in our research is that during this pandemic, a lot of diversity and inclusion, but also topics like sustainability have actually moved up when it comes to strategic importance. Maybe some of it driven by the nature of this pandemic causes us to do the right thing, but also coming out at it with a very strong business logic. We just need to change to be in the future more resilient, more adaptable, to maybe COVID-20 or 21 to actually make sure we get the talent in and keep them. So I think coming out of that on a higher level is a very positive thing. I think for us now, it's when it's so high in that strategic agenda, it's going to be super, super important that we keep that momentum, leverage that momentum, and actually take the next step when it comes to action and speed.
Right.
So how can we take that positive ingoing mindset where we started this conversation and move that towards action now, not action tomorrow or next week or next month, but action now, and make that very tangible and practical for all of our teams to move on. So that would be my call to action.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you this afternoon.